Welcome to the Woodland Doll class. I'm Julie Haymaker and I'm going to be your guide. The first thing we're going to do is go through the tools and materials. I'm going to show you what's in your kit. You will have, let's take our little kit out. You will have your various papers, tissues, fibers. You're going to have your template for doing future projects because you're already going to have your pre-cut shrink plastic pieces here that are ready for you to design. More fibers. You're going to have a pre-formed head. You're going to have your twigs. You're going to have head pins and beads and some linen thread, Q-tips, and a little packet of pastels for her cheeks or fibers. And then you're going to have the wooden base, and depending on what your kit is, your wooden base might be bare wood, it might be a white wood, it might be this green one, because I used recycled wood to make these, to keep it in this nature theme and kind of recovered objects thing, or repurposed like the twig's legs. And then the nice thing is you're going to get your stabilos. You're going to have your stabilos that are going to be used for your face. You have your red, black, blue, and brown. So let's put those guys back in their kit. And then I'm going to go through the supplies that you need to bring to do this project. Let's get those guys in there. Okay. Optional. You do not have to have it, but if you have a drill with a 1/16 inch drill bit, I'm going to show you how to use that, but you do not have to have that to do this project. I'm going to also show you how to attach things without the drill. You need a paintbrush. You're going to need paints. Here's my dowel form. I'm ready to collage the surface of it. I'm using this one with this dark green, and if you happen to have a wood base, we're just going to let that color of the wood come through. And you'll see how a colored base can play a role in it. So, you might want to paint your base a dark brown or whatever. You might want to work with the wood. Whatever you're given, I say just work with that. Whatever's in your kit, let that be what it is and just let it naturally happen. So we've got our gel medium opened here. And on my palette here, I'm going to put some white acrylic paint and some ivory. Yellow ochre, because I'm making ivory. And the first thing, I've got my little water jar here. First thing I'm going to do is I've got this nice newsprint. I go to Home Depot or Lowe's, those kind of stores, packaging stores, and I get these big rolls, sheets of newsprint. I can use it as drop cloth. It's just wonderful, the type of painting I'm going to do here. Mixing a little yellow ochre in with the white. And then I'm wiping a lot off my brush so that it isn't juicy, so that I can just, feather this on and have it dry instantly. Putting it on the bare wood, you'll find is much more absorbent, so you really don't have to wipe a whole lot when dealing with bare wood, because it just dries almost instantly. And our little guy is going to have his pre-pounded in wall hanger, because on this particular piece, when doing something that has dimensional elements on it, you want to get that on first, because you may pounding it in at the very last, maybe to destroying some of your embellishments that you've put on your piece. And on this one, as you see, I'm painting around the little pre-done eyelet, little eyelets that are going to be to hang our little twig legs. So that's almost instantly drying. I'm going to hit it with the heat gun, make sure it's nice and dry. Got myself tangled up around cords here. There we go. Now next I'm going to be collaging. So I've got my gel medium on out. I've got my collage elements here. Rip up a little bit of paper. Scissors. Cut some little scraps of lace. Tear that, and then I've got my tissue paper. I'm going to put the gel medium all over it. So my gel medium does two things for me, which you'll see in the later step of this. I like these broad strokes because I want the gel medium to dry with paint strokes in it. It's part of the technique. So it's not just that it's going to be this collaging glue. It's going to be its texture is going to be part of the technique. I'm going to place my little lace on there at an angle. I'm not going to put anything on and just random, your classic collaging. And the netting. Notice how I'm letting it wrinkle up. Being part of that texture. Pressing some of it down with my fingers. Messy, messy, fun, fun. Tissue. Notice how I went over the lace. Come in here. Put that back on there. Might come in here and redo that one and cut some on the edges. I'll bring that around the back, bring that around the back, let that fall off. Sticky fingers are pulling up my work as I go along. So coming over, it's done as far as I'm concerned. And I'm coming over here. Well, wait, I'd like to do one more thing. I'd like to come up here with a small snippet of the lace and not have it covered, meaning knocked back. I'll just use this, well, no. Cut this a little shorter, and I'm not going to cover it with the tissue so you can see the two effects, how it looks later on in the next step, how it looks just on there and then covered with the tissue. So let's get all of our little guys down, and then I'm going to let this dry, and I will be coming back and doing the next step with it. So we're going to let it dry. Coming in with some nice paint strokes, and we're going to let that dry. My piece is dry, so I'm going to be just adding the mixtures of various shades of the white and the yellow ochre. So I'm mixing that cream and taking a lot off my brush and just feathering it over the surface in what is referred to as a dry brush technique. And it starts to dull back if you had used shiny, as I had used gloss medium. Don't need to take much off the brush there. The brush feels fairly dry, then you don't have to wipe any off. If it looks like you've got lots of wet paint on it, wipe excess off. Because we're avoiding wet paint strokes, which is like wet into wet paint. We want just the feathering of it over the surface so that it just brings out the highlights of our textures. I didn't do much down there at the bottom. That's not going to show, but it still requires some paint. So a little more of the yellow ochre in there on this layer. And then this next layer, back to more white. And you can see where some of my green is showing through from my dark recycled wood. And how the various, this lace had no tissue over it, this one did. I want a nicer finishing layers up with a lot more of the white. Layers. So here you get an opportunity to see this was bare wood on this side. Notice I didn't care that the sides were the dark green. I'm just letting what happens with these layers be part of it. So this is what it looks like if it's just a wood base, and it's really pretty too. And then that's with the dark green. So, if you're watching the whole video before you've started, you can look at your wood and go, well, maybe I don't want the green. Maybe I want to paint a dark, deep red behind there. Or maybe I want to paint a dark blue, or maybe a dark brown. Or maybe I want a white on white and I want to paint out the, paint it to white. Or maybe mine came white. Maybe Julie made my doll body out of white. So there we go. Look how this just, oops, I didn't want to do that. So I'll just be dry brushing that away. Blending that in with layers of dry brushing, coming over with layers white, all gone. Whoops, I cleaned my brush out in the matte gel medium. They look very much alike. It's all good. Then I might come in just a little yellow ochre around my edges. And there. It's done. That's the portion of the body. Now, if you have your scissors or something handy, this is a good time to go into your little eyelets and clean out any paint that got into them. It doesn't mean that when you put the string through later on you might have to do this, because the eyelets come already in your doll. If you were making one from a scrap of wood yourself, you might choose to put the eyelets on later. I just wanted to have these in your doll form, trying to get that out. There. All right. So let's paint the doll's face. I start with painting just one coat of the acrylic antique white. That's my go-to color. Now, if you happen to want to paint your doll face different colors of skin tone, go to your craft store and pick out, like in the folk art paint brand and the ceramic coat paint brand, a shade that you like and make that your go-to color. So I just paint one coat on. It seals the plaster and it absorbs very fast into the plaster. So I get this nice bisque-like finish. It's important to, let me put this in the little wash pot. It's important to make sure that your plaster is that your paint is very dry before you start working with it, because we're putting the facial features on with the Stabilo pencil. The Stabilo pencil is a Stabilo all. It marks on paper, glass, plastic, and metal. It smears with water, and it smears very well, just dry with your finger, and that's why I like it. So we have red, blue, brown, and black. And these are always for sale on my website, because they are real popular with my doll making and my other doll making class spaces. So that's why I've included these other shapes in this demo. Okay, so excuse me. I've allowed this paint to dry a while. So here was the one that I just coated, and I'm letting that dry. And this is one I've gotten ready for the demo. And I want to talk about the doll's faces. We might be dealing with a round face. In this case, we're dealing with the oval one. So I'm drawing out these different shapes because I want to talk about proportions. And then we have the oval face we're dealing with here. Your eyes are always in the center of your head. Top, bottom, here's your nose. So center line is right here and all these features. It doesn't matter. That's how they are on you. And then here's your noses on any given face. And the pupils are always halfway between the nose and the outer edge of the face. So a pupil, a pupil, a pupil, a pupil, a pupil, a pupil. Doesn't matter what type of face you're dealing with. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw out on paper here what I'm going to do first, and then I'm going to do it on the little plaster dowel. And it's really important that you use a light touch. And when I tell you to use a sharp pencil, use a sharp pencil. Sharp pencil. So here's our oval doll head. And here's her nose. And here's her center lines. And I'm going to mark where the pupils are. This is the bottom of the pupil. So when it gets filled in, you're marking the bottom line of it. So eyeball in here and put 2 marks over here and then make them bigger. Realizing the mark is the bottom of the pupil. And this is the blue stabilo. Now, resharpen your pencil if you need to. And we're going to create little arches over here. So to get the marks form, you can put little dots out here and connect the dots. Dot, touch, come over to the top of the pupil, and then arch. So I'm creating the 4 little dots. And I go a light touch like a mosquito landing on you. If I need a darker line, I just build up pigment. Going over it, I don't press in darker because we don't want to scrape the plaster. If you happen to scrape your plaster and create a major problem, that's when I was talking about how you would wash your plaster off with warm water. Wash your stabilo out. And sand the divot away with 120 grit sandpaper or finer. And then if you run into a real problem, you can use spackling paste to fill in your compound and just fill in your hole and a warm cloth to wipe over any divots and start over again. So the plaster is forgiving. It sands. Okay, so you can sand away. The pencils are water soluble. And the acrylic paint, when it's fresh within its first several hours before it really cures, it can be washed off with warm water. So I'm coming over here and connecting the pupil dots, and if I have to make my pupil bigger to reach up to where I've created my arch, then great. If I, like I said, to go over the line to get a darker line, you go over it again with a light mosquito landing on you touch. Don't dig in deeper. So nice sharp black pencil. Get that ready, and now get your Q-tip out and smear the blue. This creates that blue thin, thinnest skin around our eyes look. You can see on these other dolls how that gives it the eye depth. Now my nice sharp black, I come in here and reinforce the little dots. Light touch, don't dig in. Pretend you're a mosquito landing on it. Darker, just reinforce. Go over it if you need it darker. Start out light and then just go over it. Just really light touch. Now we come in with our black Sharpie and we create the round pupils over the blue. There we go. And beautiful 3 little eyelashes, very light above the pupils. And now let's put the eyebrows in. And this one I'm doing brown and sharp brown. And I'm going to create this following the arch here. So put a little dot to know where I start with the eyebrow, and I come over with the arch heavier here and out lighter there. So marks, remember light touch, and follow the arch of the eye. There we go. Now, for the mouth, we have bottom of the nose to the chin. We have our mouth and lip shape. This is the center I'm looking for right here. And that center point is halfway between here, under the nose, and the tip of the chin. So give yourself a little mark. Light touch. Now, how I'm going to do this little mouth is we're going to create a little heart shape. If you have to draw the little heart shape and fill it in, that's fine. Light touch. Let's smear with the Stabilo. I'm going to show you something. I had a little blue on that, and it got on there. I don't want it on there. This is the beauty of the Stabilo. Look, I can just wipe that off and start over and keep that up to dry it. Start with my blue dot again and my heart. Now make sure my Q-tip is clean this time. And smear. And then I'm going to come in here with a little smile on that. Two little dots out here. And I connected a little smile and reinforced the little dot, the little ooh dot there. And if I need to reinforce my red just a little bit, that's good too. Now, the Q-tip. Clean Q-tip and the pastel. Pastels, little piece of paper with your pastel on it. You're going to take Q-tip, just put her little cheeks on. There she goes. Now we're coming in with white paint. Dip some nice moist white paint out. And I'm going to take, I hope I'm going to take, it looks like it rolled away, so there it is. You can use a needle, a safety pin, anything, a little fine needle, stick pin, safety pin, whatever. Head pin, it's a tiny little head pin. Dip it in the moist white paint and put little sparkle dots in her eyes. There she goes. Simple, easy. Same principle for all three. Let's spray her with some spray fix. Let's dry her off. And now we're going to go in and put brown around her for her hairline. Using the brown Stabilo, coming in using the side of it, and very, very lightly on my plaster, going back and forth, not digging in. See where I'm coming in on this? And there I am getting some scraping on my plaster because it wasn't sealed with paint. That's not a problem because I'm right up here, and that's right up to the line. My hairline is still on the paint. So I blend that, the Stabilo. That's what I like about the Stabilo. I can create this soft edge, transition edge. So when I put her hair on, it's not harsh. Brown paint that matches whatever you're using for your hairline. And the Stabilo Burnt Umber is the color. It can be in craft paint. It can be anything that's that nice dark brown. We want to take a lot off of our brush. We don't want it on there really wet. We're just going to feather it right up to that edge. I intended to put the ivory right up, cover it all, because that's part of sealing it, the ivory skin color, but I missed, so I had bare plaster, but that was where hairline is. And that's the beauty of using the paint, the skin tone paint from, a craft store find, because I'm going to get a little bit of water in this paint here. Instead of doing a dry brush, I'm going to get a little water in it so it fills in some of that white rare raw plaster. Okay, so back to the beauty of picking a skin tone color from a craft store paint is that when you have touch-ups, you can just go to that jar and get it. You don't have a custom mix. That, oh no, I got to do touch-up and I'm never going to match that color. So I paint the back. Let's get that a little dry. Whoopsie. Oh dear, look what I did. And this is what I talk about. Number one, this was spray fixed. So see how well that cleans up? It was spray fixed. It was sealed. And if I didn't get all of it off, or I have a few little marks, which happens. This is just so natural for this to happen when you're painting. And when you're touching the hair, there's a really good chance that you're going to get a fingerprint on it. And that's why I said I like I might have to redo her cheek. I'm just touching her up. Did I have a little bit there on her eye? And that's the beauty of it. Of using the paint, because there's always touch-ups until you get your doll hanging on the wall. Something's going to happen. Let's put the cheek back in there. And let's respray fix, because we're sealing our brown Stabilo line too. There's our little oval gal. We are ready to do our shrink plastic, and I'm going to give you options with the shrink plastic. Of these several dolls that we're looking at, the one option you will not have in your kit is I did two styles of wings on these different dolls. These were more leaf shape and these were traditional wing shapes, and that's the traditional wing shape is the ones that you have in your template. And then this doll is one with no crown on her head, and this one is with a crown on her head. This doll here had a little collar made out of scrap paper. This one here had a little medallion here of shrink plastic. This one had shrink plastic beads in it. So I included the options for you to do these 3 beads down here, plus I gave you the options to do it this way and the crown. But let's start first with our wings. We're going to get the brown Stabilo All pencil out. And we're going to burnish that down so that the tip is not sharp. I burnished it down so it makes, when it's on its edge, it makes a nice wide line. And on the sparkly side, I'm coming over here and edging my wings. A nice blunt burnished tip. Notice I keep my pencil on its side. I'm not up like this. I'm on its side where I burnished it off. So it's on that nice burnished blunt side. And I'm edging this. Now the beauty of this Stabilo pencil is it has a nice smeared look. It's a really soft pencil. But if I was uneven at all with my burnishing and my pencil lines, I can take my finger over and rub it in together to smooth it out and blend it. So we're here on the wing. Make sure I'm in the picture plane there. Kind of off to the side here so you can see my chicken scratches. Maybe I'll move over just a little bit more so you're centered on that. Coming around on this. On that sparkly side of the shrink plastic. This is from my Opulent series. I have this in rubbing pretty hard with this, getting it nice and smeared. And I'm noticing that one seems lighter than the other, so I'm going to come back in on this one and give it another layer so it's as dark as the other one. Oops. If you go out of the line, I'll show you how to fix it. I'm glad that happened so I can show you how to fix it. If you happen to have a little craft knife, that's a little X-Acto knife, you can just kind of gently scrape that off the surface. It doesn't erase very well. So any little blunt, even if you don't have an X-Acto knife, you can often use the tips of your scissors and get in there and kind of gently scratch it off. Not deeply, but you know, so you don't want to take it way off the surface, just get there and scrape it off. There we go. Now we're going to do the other elements. And you could choose to do this the same way. I'm choosing not to. I'm going to leave that blank and I'm going to double check and make sure that I don't have any pencil lines from the template when it was cut out and traced. Just going to leave this plain. There's a shiny side and a sparkly frosted side, and you'll be able to decide once you shrink this down which side you want to use. Now we're ready we're going to work on these guys right here. Let's get my little wings and crown set aside. Get myself another scratch pad paper. Down, sitting down. Got my leaves out. These are my flowers. And I'm looking for my forked leaf. Not seeing that right now. got it. So the sides we're all going to be drawing on these will be they'll all be the frosted sides. Either it'll have the sanded side or it'll have the sparkly side, and those are all the rough sides. We're going to do these little fort things in variegated colors. So I'm coming here and I'm going to do shading techniques. So once again, I'm burnishing off so I don't have a sharp tip, so I can do soft shaded lines on this. Soft shaded coverage, not a heavy hand. This is called shading, and just putting, I don't cover my shrink plastic heavy because it shrinks down 50% and the color intensifies 50%, and this piece has a softer, gentler feel. So my green down there at the tip, and then my yellow ochre, let's burnish that out so it's a nice blunted side of the pencil to put coverage on. Overlapping onto the green. Coming in here, making sure I'm not scribbly marks, but nice coverage. And if I'm concerned about my coverage, notice I'm going in another direction on it, so my pencil lines aren't all like a barn door up and down. And I'm going to come in here and rub and smear with my hands. And I don't want to torque like this because I could bend the plastic really fast and then snap it in half. Just be careful that you don't do that. So I'm kind of holding it down with my fingers while I burnish it and smear in my colors. Okay, so I got that burnished and smeared in. And then I might take some of my aqua, and I burnished it down so it's a nice sanded tip, and come in here on this with the aqua green on it, just because that's how a leaf might be if it was just hitting the light and it looked like it was different colors, or actually changing colors in the fall. So we have that, and then I'm going to take the red Stabilo, and I'm coming here really sharp and coming here and creating the center vein. And I'm going to take and burnish. Here's my brown, and I'm burnishing it and giving it the same edge that I did my wings. Same edge I did my wings. Smearing with my finger. I'm going to sharpen that. Nice and sharp. And come in here with nice sharp veins. And a light touch. Very light on the surface. Heavier pressure creates thicker lines. Then coming in with heavy pressure for little dots here. And there we have that piece done. I got this little leaf that's going to go down the center. I have choices of how I'm going to do this, but I think I'll keep this shaded maybe a lot more of the yellow ochre color. You can choose to make it more of the turquoise or pale aqua color if you want. That's up to you. So I went over a whole surface with the yellow ochre. And I'm going to show you something I'm going to do. I'm going to take the Stabilo very lightly and coming over the tip as if this leaf was... We're starting with the flowers, and that's what we're going to be using the mold for. Now, I had said to use the bezel mold for these. But if you happen to be lucky and have the fluted spacer bead mold, you can also use it for this one here. So we're going to start with the bezel mold. You can use all these in the bezel mold. So that's what I'm going to start you with. I'm going to put the sparkly, I want to be able to see the sparkly when it's in its cup, so I'm putting it so I can look at it. And I've got my little mold here, my glide pin. My glide pin on this one bent. It might have fallen on the floor and I might have stepped on it. Let me get a new glide pin on there. Okay. There, I'm going to heat this up. I will be heating, and I will be heating about this close to the bead and going around it evenly. Watch it curl and shrivel. It needs to do that. That's part of how it becomes a bead. When it's done moving on its own accord, it's not moving anymore, and it's flattened back out, you just put the mold together, hold it down together gently, and count to 5. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. And there we have our first bead. Second one, same thing. We're going to put this facing up. Sparklies are facing at me. Stopped moving on its own accord. Ready to shrink. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. Now you're welcome to use the, let me get this out. If I can't reach in there with my fingers, I can take my bead apart. Now I have two choices here. I can go ahead and do this one the same way. Drawing side up or down, doesn't matter. I'll show you that you have options with this. I put the drawing side up and sparkly on this. But on this one, it wouldn't matter to me. Stopped moving on its own accord. I put this on it and hold it down. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. So I've got this cute little bezel. I've got the little bezel. Now, what if I wish I had used the fluted spacer bead mold on that. Well, let's just put it back on here and reheat. We're going to let it flatten back out. Reheating till it flattens back out. This is for those that have the fluted spacer bead mold and would like to use that. It's opening back up and going back to its original flat shape. That's telling me it's nice and warm and ready for me to use the mold on it. It went back to its original shape. I'm putting the fluted spacer bead mold on it, pressing it down. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. There. And then I can choose on the fluted spacer bead mold which side I want to use it on. So bezel, if you happen to have this, is great. If you just have the bezel mold, that's great too. These guys are going to be shrunk just flat. And it's nice if you have a little block of wood, a little cardboard box or anything to put these in while you're heating them. Little bowl, so you're not chasing them around the table. You're just heating this inside this. So if it blows, I don't want to chase it around. It just heats it faster if the air is, warm air is enclosed in a little box. Watch it curl up. I let it flatten out. Stop moving on its own accord. Flip it out. And then if I have the little box, I can just gently place the wood on it so that it does stay down flat. Now don't move it until it's cool. And there's our little crown. I'm going to do the same for the leaves, the forked leaf. It's nice to have a little box, any little cardboard box you have around the house. And if you don't have it, use a saucepan. Metal and glass tends to heat up, so be careful if you reach in there. So like wood and cardboard is nice, just little junk boxes around the house. Little jewelry box, you know, anything, something that a small, you know, package arrived in the mail. Done moving on its own accord. Flip it out, make sure it's flat. Make sure it's cool. Still a little warm. I'm going to lift it up and blow on it. There we go. And then the center one. Now on this one I might flip it a little bit, give it a little curl. First I'm going to shrink it down. Shrunk down. And then I'm going to just curl it a little bit when I've got it out here. See how I can just biff it a little bit like that, torque the edges up and create this little ledge and let it cool like that, so that when I place it here, in between here, and put this on there, it's a cute little flower between there. Got those done. Now, for the wings. It takes a long time to shrink them in a box. I will show you 2 ways to do this. They're bigger. Well, actually, it doesn't seem to be taking that long because our box is warm already from doing the other pieces. I shake them and make sure that that they, you know, I might flip it over so I can get both sides heated. Done moving. If the wings are the first thing you did and you put them in your little box or your pan or anything and everything's cool, the whole box and everything needs to kind of warm up because that's how heat works. You know how you preheat an oven. Our box happened to be preheated. Here's our little first wing. Here's our second wing. Now you can always put these in the oven too at 350 degrees. Just watch them, put them on a piece of tin foil and a baking sheet and just watch them shrink down. Bigger pieces take a little more time. Got our little wing done. These are 2 little wings. Our little components to play with in designing. We're done with the shrink press. We're ready to assemble. The first thing, if you would like to do, is you can take your Stabilo pencil and on the edge of it right here, rub it on your edges of your doll body. Smear with your fingers. And then we're going to talk about layout. These were options that I did. Of course, this is a different set of wings on a different doll. You're working with these type of wings. On this piece here, I lined up my flowers here, which you have all made, except instead of that white one, you had made a little copper one. So you have your three little flowers, you have your wings, your crown, and your little leaf, and that little leaf. So you have those to play with. On this particular doll here, I had some scrap green paper, and I made her a paper collar, but I didn't include that in your kit. I included the check and the corrugated paper. And on this particular doll, I didn't do what we had done on our doll's body and did this beautiful background. I just painted it. So where I had used this lace in our collage, I had reserved my lace to put it down here with just the plain doll body action. So I'm going to remove that and kind of show you this type of assemblage that I'm picking. But you have, this is the fun part where you get to be creative and you get to pick and choose what you want. I will grab my drill from its drill station. You can use a drill, a Dremel, or I'm going to also show you how you don't have to use anything at all. If you choose to use the drill, what it does is we take our head pin in an assemblage like this, put our bead on it, pick out our flower bead, and we would mark along here where we would want these various pieces, because this little flower section has, a leaf section has a little hole in it too. The drill allows you to drill a pilot hole and then take your head pin and embed it down into that hole with glue, making a stronger connection. But I'm going to also show you how to do it without the drill. So let's just say right here I wanted this, I wanted just to put a drill hole in. I would mark it, take my drill, and drill down there, and do that for anywhere I'd want a hole. And now, for where I don't have the option of a drill, I'm just going to put my little guys, stack my little guys together the way that I want them to be viewed. Take a wire clipper or scissors. We'll cut these wires just fine. And see, this tail would go right, with some glue, would go right in there and hold it secure. If I don't have that option, I'm just going to cut the tail off quite short. And then when I'm ready to assemble, after I've chosen my layout, let's get it in the little hole there. Then I just use glue, real stronghold glue, to glue it, and I'll show you that when I'm ready to glue it, because I've chosen this as my little layout at the top of the place. So I'm setting that aside because I'm going to be gluing that. Like I said, you may have chosen different arrangements, and it all works the same way. But now we're going to just concentrate down here. What I'm going to choose to do is put this little corrugated piece here. So I'm tearing the paper and going to cut it shorter. can choose to decorate my sides or not. If I choose to decorate my sides, I'm going to cut little pieces for those sides. That fit a little shorter there. That's for the side. And then that's for, I think I'll, it's going to be for this side. I have those little pieces set aside, ready to glue on. And then I'm going to use, I think I'm going to do a layout with the little check like so on it. So I'm not going to use all that little check, so I'm going to trim it down. Cut my front plate piece. Set that aside. Got those up here set off to the side, front piece set off to the side, and then coming over here and cutting one for the sides over here. All right, so whatever, play with your layout, and then we'll have our wings and our crowns that we'll be gluing on too. So I'm going to set this aside. It's time for us to get our E6000 glue out. And I will start. Now, the E6000 glue is great for embellishments, especially gluing the shrink plastic. It's not really a paper glue, but I'm using it as a paper glue, and I'm not oversaturating my paper, and I have really good quality paper with a coating on it so it won't bleed through. You don't want, if you're using a handmade paper or something that's really absorbent, get your paper glue out for these kind of things. But for this particular class, I didn't want to give you a list of a million different products to buy. So E6000 can kind of be a general use glue for the limited amount of paper we're going to use. So I've got that down, and then I'm going to put this little piece on there. And the corrugated paper does tend to want to separate its little layers, so you're going to need to watch it. As it dries, it doesn't pull apart, and if it needs more glue added to it, see how it likes to curl up here and come apart. And maybe if I used a paper glue, it would be better at that. So if you're using the E6000, it may want to curl up on you, and you just watch it. But once it's dry, it will hold very securely. So there I am with that glued on. And now let's go up here for the little the little leaf thing. And since I was showing how to use it without a drill, so we won't be utilizing our hole, so my stem is short. Put some glue there on the surface. And then I'm going to pull this apart, add glue between my layers. Assemble, glue between my layers, assemble, and then I put the glue there. So there I am with her little leaf collar, and then I've chosen to put this little piece right there. So I'm going to add a little glue here and a little glue here. And I find it best to walk away from a design while it's drying in its different layers. So this would be very nice to walk away for a few minutes, give it 10 minutes. 10, if you have 20, give it 20 minutes to set up. E6000 takes a good 24 hours to really cure, but you would be able to hang this on a wall in 20 minutes and it's not going to fall down. It'll just slowly cure on its own. But in 10 minutes, you can glue other parts on it. It's a slow dry glue, so it makes it really nice for changing your mind. So we're going to put a little crown on. So I'm going to glue a little section back here. Some of my paint peeled off on that. And I'm gluing her little crown on and resting her off to the side. And then your little stick, I want you to, I had perhaps had this pre-glued in, but go ahead and glue the little stick in and glue it into the body. And let's let this rest a little bit, and then we'll put the wings on and glue her head on. Let my piece dry for about 20 minutes so that I can put the wings on and put her little head on. So I'm going to place some glue on my wings and put them back here. And I will find a little prop like a pencil or something to hold them up. And then I'm going to do the same for the little head. The little head would probably stay just fine because of the stick. I've already glued the stick in. And you have to lift this up and my wings may fall down a little bit. So probably would have been smart to put the head on first. Let's pull this off a little bit so that I can get the excess glue off. There, that's great. Now I'll go in with these wings. Oops. If I didn't have my little hanger back there, they would lay just flat. There's another little trick too. Tilt them the way that you think you want them. I want mine tilting up a little bit. Another little trick for bracing things is some tin foil behind them. Then I'm going to come in here under her neck and just tie the little lace. Am I staying on the screen for you guys for that? Going to move her down a little bit so that you can see see what I'm doing. Make sure, you know, when gluing, it's back and forth when you're gluing several elements. That's why I wanted you to have that area dry. And you could do the wings and then add the head if you wanted. So I'm putting this little neck tie on. And then I can clip this with scissors. My scissors always go walking or fall on the floor. So once again, we're going to let that dry in position. The pencil behind there is just the perfect size. And then I will be coming back and putting the twigs on. So we're ready to put the legs on. Let's get our little strip of waxed linen out and cut it into 4 sections. We're going to tie the legs and arms on with this. Let's run the waxed linen through the little eyelet hole. eye hook. I use my scissors like little pliers, pull it through, attach the wooden stick, and tie it, shoelace tile loosely onto the eye hook, double knot it, shoelace tie style, clip, other side, come through my hole. You may have to ream a little if they're not totally clear. Attach, tie on, loose, but not, loose so it swings. And then the little eye hooks for the legs. The little frayed there got stuck, so I'm using the other end. Get the stick. Double knot. Clip. Stick, double knot, clip, here we are, and we're done. Thank you for joining me.